All right, gather around, PureSkill family. This is production vlog 9, and I made a huge mistake. Now, mind you, I'm kind of exaggerating. It's not a huge mistake. It's really a small mistake, but it did cause a lot of extra work. But it's fine. I'm a very capable person, and I stay calm under pressure. I'm able to solve it. I solve it in this video. We could have been one video. We could have been done in this video, but we'll be done in the next video. I know this video was supposed to be working on custom properties, but I did notice a small mistake. So I remember a couple videos ago, if you guys don't remember, check out the previous video. I was telling you guys about the scale difference when it comes to rigs, in when it comes to anything in Blender versus Unreal, and this rig is for Unreal, right? Okay, so simply put, long story short, where I was supposed to put and I'll show it to you right here, right? Okay, where I was supposed to put 0.01 for the metric, because that's the conversion rate between meters and centimeters, I accidentally put 0.1 right here. So that's a very small mistake, just moving a decimal point, but it did cause me like a hour so of extra work, right? So that's what I'm gonna go over in this video. Fixing the units. So essentially fixing the units in Blender was simple. It was just a couple clicks of a button, but after that, what's more important is the fact that I had to actually change the size of the rig, which, like I explained in that previous video, you want to do that before you start rigging, right? So now that I'm completely like done with my rig, it meant that I had to scale up my rig, and that causes issues. The main issues when moving a rig to another program from Blender or from any other program, moving a rig from one program to another, the main issue is scaling, because of location works differently in all these programs. So essentially what happened was I scaled up Dante the rig, Dante and the rig. Dante was fine. He just scaled up because he's just a mesh, and then the rig scales up and everything looks fine until you press Control A. Control A applies the scale, because if I have an object, right, that's this small, and I scale it up to be this big, right? Let's imagine this ball is this small, and then I scale it up and now it's this big. Blender, and really any other program, doesn't look at it as you scaled it up. I mean, as you change the size of it. You understand what I'm saying? What it looks at it as is, oh, it's multiplied in size. So essentially in the properties or the thing, if I scale my hand up by 5, then it's gonna say my hand is 3 centimeters with a scale of 5. But once you press Control A, now my hand is 15 centimeters with a scale of 1. It's, wait, did I do that math right? Yeah. Which is totally different. So you want your scale to always be at 1. You don't want your scale to have a multiple, because when you import it, then it's gonna change the scale again. When you export, it's gonna change the scale again. You understand what I'm saying? So essentially, once you press Control A and you apply that new scale, the rig goes crazy, right? The rig goes crazy, and you guys see it in my video. Now, unfortunately for me, my naming conventions was correct, as I talked about in previous vlogs. I made sure to keep my naming on point, which made this process way faster. And because I understand what I did in my rig, and I understand my rig, I understand how to fix it very quickly. Now, essentially, the problem is location. Location, there are certain constraints that use location. So not all constraints deal with this problem. So I didn't have to fix all the constraints. But the individual bones wasn't the problem. The constraints I used on the bones to make like mechanism bones and target bones do what I wanted them to do, if they had something to do with location, then that was an issue. Now there's multiple bones, in there's multiple constraints, I should say, that deal with location on a rig. But in my rig, in this rig, because it was a very simple rig and it was just a mannequin rig, the only bones that dealt with location in this one was the stretch 2 constraints. Unfortunately, that was the most used constraint of the rig. So I had to go in and find all of the stretch 2 constraints, which was made easier by my naming convention, and just reset the constraint, right? Now, another issue. In the previous video, I talked about how we was protecting the animator by disabling all the bones. Disabling all the bones that wasn't control rigs, right? So, long story short, you learn from your mistakes. We learn, let's not do that until you are completely utterly sure that you are done with your rig. Because what I could have done in this scenario was just click the bones once I found them, reset the thing. But the issue was, because I couldn't click the bones, I had to go into the outliner and find all the bones that way, which did take a little bit longer. So next time, once you're ready to like animate, like once you're like completely done with your rig and you're like, okay, I'm ready to animate something, then disable bones that aren't control bones. Okay. But we learn from our mistakes. What's it called? Okay. I probably should have done that anyway, because now I'm thinking about it, when we go into custom properties, which will be the next video, which was supposed to be this one, we're gonna have to click bones that aren't control bones also to add drivers to the custom properties, which I'll talk about that in the next one. But essentially, in this video, that's what I did. I went through all of them and reset all of those stretch 2 constraints, which did take a few hours and was very tedious, but had to be done. The issue for me was at the end, when I finally was done. Start like refreshing all of the stretch 2 constraints. For some reason, I know the reason now because it's in hindsight, but I'm telling you the story. So for some reason, like the body was still like stretched out for a long time, and you guys see that. It even got to the point where I had to stop recording and actually look without recording, because I didn't want to take up space on my computer. And I wanted you guys to, I like just fast forward to when I found the mistake. So literally there's a cut in there, and it was like hours in between that time where I was just like looking for what the mistake was. And essentially what I found out was the child of bone. So when it comes to the collarbones right here, the shoulder bones, I had a child of bone, and the neck bone, I had a child of bone to the thing. Essentially, a child of bone is the exact same thing as parenting, but the difference is it's able to be disabled and enabled. So the same way a bone can be parented to another bone, and move in its forward kinematic or inverse kinematic or however, the same way they're able to be parented. And if you guys don't understand the idea of parenting, go check out my IK and FK production vlog. Check that out, and it's explained in there. The same way 2 bones can be connected in there is the exact same way, but I did it with a child of bone. This way, the child of bone can be disabled and enabled, which I wanted to use in a custom property later, so that if I didn't want the arms to follow the rest of the body for some reason, I rarely ever use that, but at the same time, I've seen it in other rigs, And when using the IK chain, is kind of helpful in very, very specific scenarios. But just to add an extra feature, just in case I wanted to use it, I added it in there, right? So I probably won't end up using it, but I might will. The thing about it though was, because so everything was scaled up, right? So imagine everything was this size, and then it scales up this size. Scaling it up, the child of constraints had to move up with it. Once it scales down, it didn't scale down with it. So that's what kept the thing stretched out the way it was. So what I ended up having to do was go in there and click the child of constraints and reset those as well. Don't deal with location, but some bug or whatever it is had me to have to do that. But it took me a long time to figure that out. And but whatever. So yes, watch the time lapse. Unfortunately, that was all caused by not moving the decimal one place. Okay, but we all make mistakes. Go ahead and check out the time lapse. Alright guys, that's all for today. Next time we will finish the rig with with the custom properties, and I'll explain how to do that and all of those good things. If you want a tutorial, go ahead and put it into the comments what type of tutorial we want, and then that's pretty much it for this video. Make sure if you guys are making a rig for thing, move the decimal twice, not once. That was a mistake on my part, but we all learn from our mistakes. See you in the next video.